My name is Alexandra Campbell, and I'm 35 years old. For most of my life, people have described me as steady. The type who pays bills on time, keeps promises, and remembers to buy milk before it runs out. I used to think that was a compliment. Stability, after all, is what everyone says they want until they find it boring. That was exactly what happened with Harry. I met him 5 years ago at a friend's birthday barbecue. It was one of those early spring evenings, air still cold enough for jackets, but the light stretching longer than you expect. He was laughing with a small group near the grill sleeves, rolled up in hands, moving animatedly as he told a story about freelancing for a small design agency. He had that type of charm that feels unintentional, messy hair, worn denim paint smudges on his fingers. I remember thinking he looked like someone who'd never missed a sunset. We hit it off quickly. I worked in software development, a far cry from his world of sketches and brand concepts, but our differences fascinated him. He said he loved how grounded I was, that my calmness made him feel safe. At the time, that felt like the beginning of something real. For the first 2 years, we were inseparable. We moved in together after 18 months, a modest apartment overlooking a narrow canal where the morning light always spilled across the floorboards. It wasn't luxurious, but it was ours. I remember cooking late-night pasta, talking about future plans, his dream of opening a creative agency, my quiet hope of landing a leadership position at my company. We built routines. Sunday mornings were for coffee and thrift store browsing, evenings for quiet dinners. When his freelance projects dried up during the pandemic, I covered the rent, helped him polish his portfolio, and reassured him that things would pick up again. "You're talented, Harry," I'd say, scrolling through his designs. "You just need one good client." He'd smile grateful and whisper, "You're my rock, Alex." I believed him. When my company later offered me a promotion that required frequent travel, he frowned. "You'd be gone half the month," he said, running a hand through his hair. "That's not us, right? We work as a team." He said we. And just like that, I turned it down. It felt right at the time. Love meant compromise, didn't it? Only later did I realize the sacrifices weren't shared. Things started to change around year 3. Harry landed a job at a sleek new design firm downtown. He came home buzzing with ideas and names I didn't know. One kept resurfacing: Maya. "She's brilliant," he said one night, tossing his sketchbook on the couch. Totally fearless with her concepts. "You'd like her." At first, I did like the way he talked about her. His enthusiasm was contagious. But slowly, his stories started to include details that didn't feel like just work. Maya said my last pitch was genius. He'd laugh pouring wine. Maya thinks we should travel more break routines. Maya this, Maya that. I told myself it was harmless. People can have work friends. Yet something in the tone of his voice and unconscious admiration made me uneasy. Then came the late nights. At first, it was last-minute deadlines, client presentations, team brainstorming. But one night, as I was washing dishes, his phone lit up with a message preview. "Maya. Still can't stop laughing about that thing you said." I remember standing there, hands dripping soap, heart sinking into the tiled floor. When he got home, I asked gently, "Hey, what's so funny?" He blinked too quickly. "What?" The text from Maya. He shrugged. "Oh, that. Just an inside joke. Don't overthink it." He kissed my cheek, walked to the bedroom, and I stood in the kitchen, listening to the sound of his phone buzzing again. Another message, another laugh, another piece of my peace chipping away. In the following weeks, he became more distracted. We'd be out at dinner, and he'd casually mention Maya found this new rooftop bar, apparently the best view in the city. Then a small sigh. "We should do things like that, be more spontaneous." I'd smile tightly, stirring my drink, feeling the invisible comparison land like a bruise. Our conversations grew shorter. My attempts to connect, asking about his day, cooking his favorite meals, were met with distant nods. His eyes were elsewhere, often on his phone. When I asked if something was wrong, he'd sigh. "Nothing's wrong, Alex. You don't get the creative grind." One night I tried again. "You're always at the office lately. Everything okay?" He set down his fork, annoyed. "Can you not turn this into an interrogation? Maya and I are working on a big campaign. It's important. I wasn't accusing you. Alex, you can't tell me who to be friends with." That sentence hung in the air like a slap I couldn't dodge. I said nothing, just nodded silently, replaying the word friends in my mind until it lost all meaning. The next week, my manager called me into a meeting. London's opening up again, she said, and we need someone steady to lead the integration team. You're the first name on my list. My heart jumped. London. The opportunity I'd once given up. That evening I told Harry over dinner, they want me to transfer to London. It's a big step, more responsibility, more pay. He froze mid-bite. London. That's far, I know, but it's a huge opportunity. He set his fork down slowly. You'd be gone all the time. We'd barely see each other. This isn't us. Maybe it's just temporary. I could fly back often. He shook his head, voice soft but sharp. If you love me, you'll stay. I stared at him, trying to read the sincerity beneath his calm expression. He reached for my hand. We can build something amazing here, Alex. Don't throw it away for some job. And like before, I nodded, convincing myself this was commitment, not control. That night, as I stared at the dark ceiling beside his sleeping form, something inside me cracked. For the first time, I wondered if we meant me bending until I broke. I didn't know it yet, but that was the beginning of the end. The start of the storm I refused to see coming. They say heartbreak doesn't happen in one moment, it seeps in quietly like water through cracks. You didn't notice until the floor collapses. For me, it began with laughter, not mine his. Harry's phone would light up with messages from Maya, and I'd hear him chuckle softly under his breath, thumb gliding across the screen. The kind of laugh that once belonged to our private jokes. I tried not to look, not to ask, but curiosity is a cruel companion when love starts to fade. Everything okay? I asked one evening, leaning against the doorway. Yeah, he said, smiling at his screen. Just Maya. She found this meme about client feedback. You wouldn't get it. It's a design thing. The tone was casual, dismissive, the kind that shuts you out gently enough to make you doubt yourself. I walked away, pretending I didn't hear my heart whisper, she's already inside the space that used to be yours. Over the next few weeks, the signs multiplied like shadows under a flickering light. He started dressing differently. Fitted shirts, that new cologne I'd never smelled before. He worked later, came home later, texted more, smiled less. When he did talk to me, it was always half present. His eyes never quite met mine. I tried to stay calm. I told myself every couple goes through rough patches. Still, the emptiness grew louder each day. One Friday night, after another long work session, Harry came home past midnight. I was on the couch, pretending to watch TV. Hey, I said softly. Long night. He dropped his bag with a sigh. Yeah, campaign's brutal. You could have called. He looked up, frowning. Alex, I'm exhausted. Can we not do this right now? Do what? Talk? He rubbed his temples. God, you're making something out of nothing again. Harry, He cut me off, voice sharp now. You can't tell me who I can be friends with. Okay. Maya and I work well together. You should be happy for me instead of acting paranoid. It was such a strange word, paranoid, because in that moment I realized that's how he saw me now. Not as his partner, but as an obstacle. I didn't respond, just nodded, walked into the kitchen, and poured a glass of water to hide the shaking in my hands. That night I lay awake long after he fell asleep beside me, staring at the faint glow of his phone on the nightstand. I thought about opening it, the temptation was suffocating, but I didn't. Not yet. Some part of me still wanted to believe him, still wanted to believe us. The following week, he was invited to a weekend retreat with his team. Work bonding, he said, casually tossing a duffel bag over his shoulder. We're staying at a villa Maya's friend owns. I forced a smile. Sounds fun. He grinned, kissed my cheek, and added, Try not to worry, okay? I didn't respond, just nodded, and watched him walk away. That weekend was endless. The flat was too quiet. I cleaned, cooked, scrolled through social media, anything to distract myself from the creeping sense of humiliation. I didn't find photos, but there were hints. Maya's post of a bonfire, a man's silhouette reflected in her sunglasses. The comments filled in the blanks. You two are unstoppable. Dream team. When Harry came home Sunday night, I asked him how it was. Great, he said simply. Maya's ideas really pushed the campaign forward. I laughed softly. You mention her like she's your creative soulmate. He smiled faintly, not catching the irony. Maybe she is, at least professionally. That was the first time I felt something die quietly inside me. A few days later, my manager pulled me aside again at work. Alex London's still on the table, she said. You'd be leading a new project. I know you turned it down before, but it's yours if you want it. I smiled politely. Can I think about it? Of course. Just don't take too long. It's a career maker. That night I told Harry about the offer again. This time his reaction was different. Seriously, London again. He laughed dryly. Are you trying to run away? Run away, I repeated. It's a promotion. I thought you'd be happy for me. He shrugged. It's just, we're already stretched thin. A long-distance thing. That's not us. Maybe it could be temporary, I suggested. I'd fly home often. He leaned back, arms crossed. Alex, you're not listening. You always think you can control everything, the outcome, the timing me. You need to relax. His words landed like tiny cuts, deliberate but disguised as concern. I'm not trying to control you, I said quietly. I just want us both to grow, he smirked. Grow separately, you mean? That night, as I stood at the window watching the city lights ripple across the canal, something in me began to shift. For the first time, I saw the imbalance clearly, how much I'd given up, how much he'd taken for granted. I remembered the promotion I'd declined, before how proud he'd looked when I'd said no. And now I wondered if pride was all it ever was. The following weekend, he announced casually that he'd be working late again. I didn't ask with whom. Instead, I made myself dinner set 2 plates and sat alone in the dim light. The food went cold before I touched it. Hours later, I heard the door open. He stumbled in, smelling faintly of cologne, not the one I'd bought him, but something sharper, unfamiliar. I looked up. You smell different. He blinked unbothered. Probably Maya's perfume. We were reviewing some designs up close. She's kind of hands-on. The laugh that followed was meant to sound innocent, but to me it sounded like mockery. I nodded, swallowed the ache in my throat, and said softly, Right, hands-on. He didn't notice the crack in my voice. Or maybe he did and didn't care. By Monday, the distance between us felt physical. We still lived together, but it was like sharing a space with a ghost. He scrolled through his phone during meals, slept with his back turned, and barely acknowledged my presence. One evening, I opened the curtains to find the city reflected in the glass, his reflection beside mine. 2 people standing close, yet galaxies apart. That was when I knew I wasn't losing him. He was already gone. And the only person I could blame for staying too long was me. The truth didn't arrive like lightning. It came quietly on a random Wednesday evening while I was trying to make dinner. Harry had left his tablet on the coffee table screen, glowing faintly with incoming notifications. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't looking for trouble. I just needed the recipe I'd saved on our shared account. But when I tapped the browser, a chat window popped up, not hidden, not even locked, and there it was. Maya. Can't stop thinking about last night. You taste like guilt in coffee. My hands went cold. My first instinct wasn't anger, it was disbelief. A surreal stillness, like the air before a storm. I scrolled further against every instinct begging me not to. Harry, you're trouble, but the best kind. Maya. If she finds out Harry? She won't. She's too trusting. That line hit harder than any confession. She's too trusting. I closed the tablet carefully as if roughness might break something even more fragile, the last illusion that we were still us. My chest tightened, breath shallow. The apartment once our cozy haven suddenly felt like a stranger's house filled with echoes I no longer recognized. When Harry came home later that night, he smelled like rain and someone else's perfume. I waited until he hung up his coat, until he looked at me with that same easy smile, the one that had once felt like safety. Harry, I said softly, we need to talk. He froze. What's up? I saw your messages with Maya. A pause. The kind that stretches so long it stops feeling like silence and starts feeling like confession. He didn't even look shocked, just irritated. You went through my stuff. It was open, I said quietly. I wasn't looking for anything. I just found it. He exhaled, slow, controlled. So you're snooping now. I read a message, Harry. That's not the point. Then what is the point? He threw his keys on the counter, voice rising. That you don't trust me, that you're paranoid, like I said. I swallowed hard, steadying my voice. You kissed her. He stared at me, eyes flickering just enough to confirm it. Then came the smirk. It's not like we slept together. My throat tightened. That doesn't make it better. He shrugged, walking to the fridge. It was a mistake. A moment. We were drunk. It didn't mean anything. But you kept texting her, flirting, meeting outside work. He shut the fridge, turning to face me. You make it sound like I committed a crime. Maya's been there for me, Alex. You haven't. You've been distant for months. My voice cracked. Distant, I've been here, supporting you, paying bills, turning down promotions for you. He laughed, actually laughed. Yeah, that's the problem. You're always so responsible, so boring. Maya gets my creativity. She pushes me. You just keep everything safe. His words were surgical precise and meant to wound. I stood there, the sound of my own heartbeat loud in my ears. So that's what you wanted, I said softly. Excitement. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. I wanted to feel alive again. You've turned our life into a checklist. My vision blurred, and cheating was your solution. It's not cheating if it's emotional, he said bluntly. And besides, we're not married. Don't make this bigger than it is. I almost laughed, but it wasn't humor, it was disbelief. You betrayed me, Harry. You made me doubt myself. He waved a hand dismissively. Don't be dramatic. I just need space to figure things out. Space, I repeated, while living here, on my income. His tone sharpened. Oh, please. You've always been the provider type. You like being the one who keeps things stable. Maybe that's your real issue. You need control. I felt something inside me snap quietly but irrevocably. Control, no. What I'd needed was respect. He picked up his jacket. I'll stay with Maya for a while. We'll sort out the flat later. And Alex? He looked back over his shoulder. Don't take that London job. If you move now, it'll just complicate things. Maybe we can fix this if you stay and change a little. Change, I repeated barely above a whisper. He smiled faintly. Be more spontaneous, less intense. Then he walked out. No apology, no hesitation. Just the sound of the door clicking shut, neat, final, like punctuation at the end of a sentence I didn't know I'd been writing. That night I didn't cry. Not yet. I just sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the half-finished dinner, at the wine glasses that would never be clinked together again. The city outside moved on, unaware that my world had quietly collapsed. I thought about every moment I'd chosen him over myself. The promotion I'd declined. The nights I'd stayed awake waiting. The way I'd excused his coldness because I believed love required patience. And I realized I hadn't been patient. I'd been invisible. The next morning, sunlight hit the wall, cutting across the shadows of the blinds. I got up slowly, made coffee for one, and opened my laptop. The email from HR about the London position was still sitting there unread. I stared at it for a long time. My reflection in the screen looked calm, too calm, like someone who had nothing left to lose. Then I clicked reply. Subject retransfer opportunity message. Thank you for the offer. I'm available to relocate immediately. I didn't overthink it, didn't draft or redraft. Just sent it. The decision felt clean, weightless. Afterward, I went through the apartment quietly packing his things into boxes. No rage, no tears. Just order the kind that comes after chaos. Every folded shirt, every forgotten charger felt like closure stitched into silence. By the time the sun dipped below the canal, I sat on the couch, surrounded by neatly stacked boxes and the hum of my own breathing. For the first time in months, there was peace. A strange, heavy peace, but peace nonetheless. Harry had taken the noise with him when he left, and I was finally ready for the quiet. London didn't welcome me with open arms. It greeted me with rain, sharp, relentless, and cold enough to sting. But I didn't mind. After months of chaos, the rain felt cleansing, like the city itself was washing away the remnants of who I used to be. My new flat was small, a one-bedroom in Shoreditch, with thin walls and a stubborn window that never quite closed. But it was mine. No shared closets, no extra toothbrush by the sink, no faint scent of someone else's cologne lingering in the hall. Just the sound of traffic, my coffee machine sputtering, and the unfamiliar hum of independence. Every morning I walked to work through the drizzle, passing the same bakery where the owner started recognizing me after a week. Flat white? Yeah, he'd say, smiling. I'd nod, grateful for the small consistency. My days filled quickly. Meetings, deadlines, projects that challenged me in ways I'd forgotten I enjoyed. For the first time in years, my success belonged entirely to me. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. At night, I'd cook simple meals, watch the city lights flicker against my window, and breathe. The quiet no longer felt lonely, it felt earned. A month passed before I heard Harry's name again. It came through a mutual friend, Sophie, during a casual video catch-up. So she said hesitantly, "Have you talked to him?" I blinked. "Talked to who?" "Harry! You didn't know." She shifted uncomfortably. "Things fell apart with him and Maya." I said nothing, just waited. Sophie sighed. "It's bad, Alex. Apparently she was seeing someone else on the side. His boss, actually. Word got around the firm, and it got messy. She dumped him, and he kind of spiraled." A pause. The rain outside hit harder against the glass. I stirred my tea slowly. I see. He's been reaching out to people, Sophie continued. Says he misses you, regrets everything. I gave a faint smile. People always regret when their chaos stops feeling like freedom. Sophie didn't know what to say after that. The call ended soon after, but her words lingered like static in my mind. In the following weeks, I started hearing fragments of Harry's downfall through mutual circles. He'd quit his job after being humiliated at work. Maya had drained their joint account, leaving him with rent he couldn't afford. Rumors swirled debts fights a shouting match outside the agency that made it to social media. It was poetic in a cruel way. The creative muse he'd left me for had turned his life into the chaos he thought he wanted. I didn't gloat. I didn't post a single thing about it. Instead, I focused on my new project, an AI integration rollout that earned our department praise. My boss even mentioned a potential promotion during a team dinner. You've got a steady hand, Alex, he said. When others panic, you stay calm. I smiled. It's a skill I learned the hard way. London became more than a city. It became a mirror. Every street reminded me how far I'd come. The woman who once begged for scraps of attention was gone. The one who replaced her, the woman who woke up before dawn to jog along the Thames, who laughed with coworkers over late-night takeout, who no longer waited for anyone's approval, she felt alive. One Saturday, I walked past a park near my flat. A couple sat on a bench laughing over a shared sandwich. Something in the sight hit me unexpectedly. Not pain, not envy, just realization. I'd spent years mistaking familiarity for love. But love wasn't about who you stayed for. It was about who didn't make you shrink to stay. I went home that evening and deleted the last photo I had of Harry, the one I'd kept out of habit. His face smiled up at me from the screen, confident, carefree. I pressed delete. The screen went black. For the first time, I didn't feel empty afterward. A few days later, I got a message from another old acquaintance, Claire, one of Harry's college friends. Hey, Alex. Just wanted to say you handled everything with grace. I wish he'd realized what he lost before it was too late. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. He didn't lose me. He let go of me. There's a difference. I didn't mean it as bitterness, just truth. By the second month in London, my life had become steady again, the kind of stability Harry once called boring. But to me, it felt like strength. My routines were quiet, my friendships deepening. I wasn't healing for his sake anymore. I was rebuilding because I finally remembered what peace felt like. Sometimes I'd walk along the bridge after work, watching the water shimmer under the city lights. I'd imagine my old life like another country, a place I'd visited but could never return to. And somewhere in that reflection, I realized the strangest, most beautiful thing of all. I didn't miss him. I missed who I was before I met him, and I was becoming her again. One evening, as I prepared dinner, my phone buzzed. A name flashed across the screen, unknown number. I stared at it for a moment. Didn't answer. A few seconds later, a voicemail appeared. Curiosity won for half a heartbeat. I pressed play. Harry's voice. Hey, Alex, it's me. Just wanted to check in. Hope you're doing well. Maybe we could talk sometime. His tone was soft, almost rehearsed, the kind of voice people use when they're testing if the door is still open. I deleted it before it finished. Then I poured a glass of wine, sat by the window, and smiled at the skyline. For the first time, I understood what freedom truly meant. It wasn't about running away, it was about finally standing still and realizing you survived. And this time I wasn't surviving despite him. I was thriving without him. The first message came on a Sunday morning. I was watering my small collection of plants, enjoying the rare London sunlight spilling through the kitchen window. My phone buzzed with a notification, an unknown number. Harry, hey. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I miss you. Can we talk? I stared at the screen for a long moment, then simply turned it face down on the counter. It buzzed again. Please, Alex, just 5 minutes. I didn't reply. Instead, I poured another cup of coffee and stepped onto the tiny balcony. The city hummed beneath me, buses chatter life moving forward, and for the first time, I felt no pull backward. The silence was my choice now. By the third message, he'd changed his tone. I know I messed up. Maya's gone. She was not what I thought. She used me, played me, left me with nothing. You were right. The irony made me laugh, a soft, humorless sound that startled even me. I deleted the thread without replying. But that didn't stop him. Within days, the emails started. Subject, please read. Alex, I've lost everything. Maya cheated, then disappeared. I lost my job because of it. I'm back at my sister's place now, trying to pick up the pieces. I keep thinking about what you said, that stability isn't boring. I get it now. Please just talk to me. I need a friend. I closed the laptop and exhaled. It was strange, not the kind of satisfaction revenge stories promise, but something quieter, poetic almost. Life had circled back, and the man who once called me too safe now longed for the safety I represented. I made myself a promise that night I would never again confuse pity for love. A few days later, Sophie called again. "Harry's really struggling," she said gently. "He's been asking about you. Maybe you could—" "No," I interrupted. "I can't. I get that. But he's a mess, Alex. He's not eating, not working. He made choices," I said quietly. "Now he's living with them." There was a pause, the kind filled with quiet judgment. "You've changed," she said finally. "I had to." We ended the call politely, but I could tell she didn't understand. People rarely do until they've been burned the same way. The next wave of messages came not from Harry, but from his circle mutual friends, even his sister. "He's really sorry, Alex. Just give him 5 minutes. He told me he still loves you. Don't be cruel. He's suffering." Cruel. That word clung to me for hours. As if my silence was cruelty, not his betrayal. As if healing privately was something I should apologize for. I didn't respond to any of them. I'd spent years giving explanations to people who never earned them. Not anymore. A week later, my phone buzzed with a new message. This time, it wasn't pleading. It was angry. "Harry, fine. Be that way. You've turned cold. I hope your perfect life in London makes you happy." Then, not even 10 minutes later, another. "I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I'm just lost without you." It was a cycle: guilt, blame, apology, repeat. The same pattern that used to keep me trapped. I could almost predict his next line before it came. And then it did. "Can I come see you, please? I'll find a way to London. I just need to see your face." I blocked the number. Again. But Harry wasn't done. A week later, a new email arrived. Different address, same desperation. "I know you're reading these. Don't pretend you're not. You used to care. What happened to you?" What happened? I smiled faintly. I learned the difference between empathy and self-destruction. I archived the message and moved on with my day. Work was busier than ever. We were preparing for a major presentation, and my team depended on me. After years of being the steady one for someone who didn't value it, I finally understood the gift of that steadiness. It wasn't weakness. It was my strength. Then came the final straw, a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't play it, but curiosity won for a moment. "This is Harry's mother, Alexandra. I don't know what happened between you two, but he's heartbroken. You were good for him. Please talk to him. He's not sleeping, not eating. You're being very unkind." I closed my eyes, jaw tight. Even now they expected me to fix him, to mother the man who broke me. I deleted the voicemail, then turned my phone off completely. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty for protecting my peace. Weeks passed. The messages slowed, then stopped entirely. I started dating again cautiously, quietly. There was a man from my office named Liam, soft-spoken, patient. We'd grab coffee after work, talk about music films, the small joys that used to feel impossible. He never asked about Harry, and I never offered. One evening, after a particularly late meeting, Liam walked me to the train station. "You seem like someone who's had to hold a lot together," he said gently. I smiled. "Not anymore." He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "Good. You deserve to just exist." It wasn't romantic, but it was honest, and that honesty felt like a sunrise I hadn't seen in years. A month later, I joined a virtual birthday party for one of our old college friends. Dozens of faces filled the screen, laughter overlapping through lag and poor Wi-Fi. I felt relaxed, almost nostalgic, until I saw his name appear. Harry. He joined late, camera on. His face looked thinner, eyes tired. The group went awkwardly quiet for a moment. He forced a smile. "Hey everyone. Long time." "Hey," someone muttered. He scanned the faces and then found mine. "Alex," he said softly. "You look good." I nodded once. "Thanks." The conversation stumbled along, forced and polite. When the call ended, a private message from him popped up. "Can we talk, please? Just for a minute." I stared at it. Then I did what I'd learned to do best: nothing. Because silence, I'd come to understand, wasn't coldness. It was closure. After that video call, the silence between us became its own kind of final chapter. I thought that would be the end, but karma, I've learned, doesn't end neatly. It unfolds slowly and mercilessly until the lesson is complete. 2 weeks after the call, another message appeared in my inbox. A new email again, same pleading tone, same excuses dressed as apologies. "Alex, I know you probably hate me. I deserve that. But I'm not asking for forgiveness, just a chance to say this in person. I'm in London next week. Let me take you to coffee, please. I read it once, then minimized the screen. I had a big presentation that day, one I'd been preparing for weeks. Harry's words didn't even sting anymore. They just sounded small. The difference between us had become so vast it was almost unrecognizable. But curiosity, that old ghost, lingered. And part of me, not the wounded part, but the human part, wanted to look him in the eyes one last time to see what remained of the man I'd once loved. So I agreed. We met in a small cafe off Regent Street. Neutral ground, neutral time, early morning, before the city fully woke. He was already there when I arrived, hunched over a cup of coffee that had gone cold. For a moment, I barely recognized him. His once carefree face was drawn thinner, his hair unkempt, his posture heavy. He looked up when I entered, relief flooding his features. "Alex," he stood awkwardly. "You came." I nodded. 10 minutes. He tried to smile, but it faltered. "You look incredible. London suits you." "Thanks," I said, simply sitting down. "What do you want to say?" He hesitated, hands trembling slightly. "I'm sorry. For everything. For what I did. What I said. You didn't deserve any of it." I stared at him unmoved. "You're right. I didn't." He swallowed hard. I thought I needed excitement, something new. But all I did was destroy the only real thing I ever had. Maya. I raised a hand. I don't need to hear about her. He nodded quickly. "Right. I lost everything, Alex. My job, my place, my confidence. I'm trying to start over, but it's hard. You always made things feel easy. You made me feel grounded." I sipped my coffee. "You didn't want grounded. You called it boring." He winced. "I know. I was arrogant. I thought stability meant settling, but now I see it's the only thing that lasts." His voice cracked slightly, but I didn't feel pity. Only distance, like I was watching a rerun of a show I'd already outgrown. "Harry," I said softly, "you wanted freedom. You found it. This," I gestured between us, "wasn't about stability or excitement. It was about respect. And you lost that long before Maya." He leaned forward. "Can't we at least try again? I'm different now. I know what matters." I shook my head. "No, you don't. You know what hurts. That's not the same thing." He looked stunned, as if the truth had weight he'd never carried before. "I don't hate you," I continued. "I don't even resent you anymore. But I'm not your safety net. I'm not the person you crawl back to when the thrill dies." "Please, Alex, don't say that." "I have to," I said quietly. "Because if I don't, you'll think there's still a chance. There isn't. I built a new life, one that doesn't depend on your remorse." He dropped his gaze to the table, tears glinting. "I deserve this." Maybe I said standing, but this isn't punishment, it's consequence. I placed a few pounds beside my cup and stepped toward the door. Behind me, I heard him whisper, "You're really not coming back, are you?" I turned slightly. I already did for myself. And then I left. That afternoon, I walked along the Thames, wind catching my hair, the city alive around me. The encounter didn't leave me shaken. It left me clear. Harry had been the storm, but I was the calm that followed. For the first time, I realized I wasn't defined by what I'd endured, but by what I'd refused to become. In the weeks that followed, I deleted the last traces of him: emails, numbers, the hidden folder of old photos. Gone. I started saying yes to new things: an art exhibit with Liam, a weekend trip to Brighton, even an open mic night where I read a short piece about starting over. When I finished reading, the audience applauded softly, and I felt something I hadn't in years: light. Months passed, and life didn't just return to normal. It became better. I got promoted. My new flat had bigger windows, a small balcony overlooking the city lights. Liam and I grew closer quietly, without rush or need to fill silences with promises. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection and think she looks like peace. And then one night, as I sat writing at my desk, a thought came uninvited. Would Harry ever truly understand what he'd lost? I smiled faintly. Maybe he would. Maybe he wouldn't. Either way, it didn't matter. Because closure isn't something you get from the person who broke you. It's something you give yourself when you finally stop waiting for them to understand. If you're reading this, wondering whether to stay, to fix, to fight, listen carefully. Love that asks you to shrink isn't love. Respect that must be begged isn't respect. And silence when it comes from strength isn't cold, it's power.